Welcome to the podcast, People More Interesting Than Me. I'm your host, Michael Strumsky. Today, I'm thrilled to have Alex Kang with us, who has recently started his own restaurant in Northern Virginia called Okonomi. Okonomi currently offers the same pick-and-choose style as Chipotle and Cava, but with Asian bowls. His goal is one day to make Okonomi a global chain. So let's dive in and learn what Alex has learned so far and how he believes he can reach his dream. Enjoy.
So I looked up your LLC and it's not, I guess it's tied to Okonomi Grill, but what's the actual name of your LLC?
The LLC is a very good food company.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I mean, look at, what's it called? Elon Musk, I think the Boring Company. He's got all those.
Yeah.
But I thought that was cute. I was like, because I wanted to see, like, you started it semi-recently, but I wanted to see, like, because I feel like it's a big thing because I've started a couple LLCs for my company.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not a huge thing, but, like, you're picking out a name, you're like...
Names have importance.
Yeah, and you're putting a filing fee and stuff like that, so... What got you to that point? What made you want to start your own? By the way, I was looking for the correct terminology. Would you say restaurant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's a restaurant, but then...
Let me start off like this, by the way. So I met Alex over a suggestion from a good friend, Lauren Pescatori. Oh, sorry, that's not her name anymore. Lauren Cody. And she raved about the place. She said she loved the rice bowls and stuff like that. And the funny thing is, as you drove here, did you realize how close I was?
Yeah.
And I had never been to the place before, and it had been open for three months. And to describe it to people who are listening, the bowls are, if you really like bulgogi and cava, it's like mixed with that. And it's just got, like, all the ingredients are just flavorful. They come together. Like, the rice is good. Like, all the bases are good, and then the meat is just, I don't want to say succulent, but, like, really moist and juicy.
Well, it's just cooked well. That's what it is. It's just done right. I tell my workers, the ones that I have now, that we're not doing anything amazing by any means. We're just doing it right. Yeah. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't do. Like, they say they want to do this or that, and like they come out with these concepts, but it's just like you're not executing properly.
Yeah.
So
it's like there's thought in it.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Whereas it's not like checking the boxes to get it done. You actually care what it tastes like when it's going out.
Yeah. So I mean, like, even when I'm training my staff, like, even though they're front of house, I still go over like the 5 traits of food that you want to find, like aroma, appearance, taste, texture, temperature. Like, these are all things that anybody in the restaurant industry that's touching the food should be aware of. So there's definitely checks like that we have in place so that the food comes out consistently.
Okay, let me circle back to my last question on what got you to that point. What made you, I guess, what built you up your skill and knowledge to get to such a point where you're like, okay, I want to do this myself?
So, I mean, I did restaurants here and there part-time while I was in Asia, a lot, just because my friends were involved in it. And, like, if you don't have, I have zero connections in Asia. Mm-hmm. Like, when I first went, that I literally had an aunt, and that was it.
Yeah.
So, like, the friends that I met, they were all doing like restaurant stuff. So if you want to...
And your degree is in marketing, correct?
Sorry?
Business?
No. I have a degree in biology and chemistry.
That's what it was. And I was like, maybe we had like Simmons. Was it Simmons?
Simmons? Yes. Yeah. He was the bio professor.
Big,
yeah.
And he taught. Yeah, he's definitely Southern. Sorry, keep going.
I love Simmons too. Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, no, when you have nobody that you're like, acquainted with or anything, like, you just want to spend time with people and they're already in like their restaurant doing stuff. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to hang out at your restaurant kind of thing. So, that's kind of how I got into the restaurant stuff. And they kind of realized, oh, you kind of have a knack for this, like, like you're looking at it in a different way than we are, kind of thing. I mean, I was looking at it in a like scientific kind of way, like, how does the food cook? How are we doing it this way? Like, what are the processes that we're doing, right? Can we replicate it? That's really like the big thing that they saw. It was just like, oh, he's looking at ways that we can like make this consistent, and like, yeah. So, but yeah, really that was coming from a place of, well, I have nobody to hang out with, and these guys are in the restaurant all the time, so I'm gonna hang out with them. Like, what's their problem, and like, how can we fix it so that we can go drink afterwards?
Yeah, it sounded like you went to Virginia Tech and you should have got an engineering degree.
Oh, most definitely. Like, I when I was at Virginia Tech, like, I still remember, like, I was in a business class, and like, as a science major, like, taking a business class, that's really weird. But it was one of those gen eds that I had to take, and I was just like acing it, and I was just like, yeah, I have a knack for business. I know that, so I don't really need to take this. But then, like, the engineering stuff, that always fascinated me. Like, the idea of like, there's a problem, we must fix it. Like, that's something that, like, I wish I pursued that career, because like, I feel like that's something that I would have found a lot of happiness from.
Yeah.
But instead, I went this like pre-med route that, like, towards the end, in my senior year, like, I looked at the pre-med route and I was just like, this just isn't it for me. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, healthcare in America is broken. There's just no way that, like, I will influence healthcare in such a way that, like, it's meaningful in my life. Or like, it was such, like, I shadowed the doctor, and like, it was just like one of those, like, oh, it's just a bunch of obese people, like, coming in at the last second, like, right before, like during a heart attack or something, like, they're on the deathbed basically, and like, this is kind of what American healthcare is, and it's like, that's not something I really want to be a part of. So yeah, that's kind of what sums up the college experience for me, where it's like, oh man, I got this degree that, like, is really kind of not, like, anything, because I didn't, like, you had to go, like, further, you had to advance in it.
Yeah, biology, I mean,
make it
like,
worthwhile.
It's, I mean, obviously it's above, as you know, going to tech, all the engineers would stack their majors on which one was better, but like psychology and like, all those majors where it's like, well, you paid this much for 4 years of that.
Yeah, there's that. And then, I mean, I still make fun of, like, for example, one of my workers, he's like, oh yeah, he's a high schooler, he's a senior, and he's going to college next year, and he's like, I think I'm going to go in for psych. And I'm like, that's a soft science. Nobody's going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that we always did when we were in college too. So, yeah.
So I guess with all your experience going through all the restaurants, helping out your friends, and then coming back in the U.S., what was the step like that from there to, I guess, first starting out?
Oh man, that was such a weird transition. So, I mean, like, my last job in Korea was really, on paper it says that I was consulting, but basically it was my mentor that picked me up. I had a mentor while I was in Korea, who was a family friend, and the entire time I was in Korea, like, he would check up on me, take me out to, like, lunch, and just be like, hey, how are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Kind of thing. And like, at that point, I had been playing poker for a living.
Yeah. And
I was just tired of it. It was one of those, like, poker is super solitary. If you're, like, spending 40 hours on the table, which would be, like, considered full-time, right?
Yeah.
You're spending 80, like, off the table, like, going over every little, like, detail.
Yeah.
And just, like, optimizing everything. Like, optimizing your play, optimizing, like, how you exploit people.
Were you doing it in person or online?
Oh, in person, because you make so much money over there. Like, there's just so many Chinese multimillionaires that just don't know an ounce of what they're doing.
Yeah, they're just blowing it.
Yeah, and they're just literally giving away tens of thousands of dollars, and you're just sitting there like, oh, thank you, like, yeah. But yeah, I was doing that, and then like I literally had like what's it called, the ticket information and everything to go back to the States, and then he called me and was like, hey, I want to open up a second franchise. He had a franchise at that point that he had taken over when I first came to Korea, and it was a Vietnamese franchise that was opened by two like Korean Americans. So it was like an American style like Vietnamese restaurant.
Yeah.
So that's completely foreign in Korea too, because they go Hanoian style, which is completely different than the Saigonese and American style that like we in America are used to, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, he had taken that over, and when he took it over, they only had 2 restaurants, and like by the time he had contacted me, they had like 10 plus.
Wow.
Yeah. They even had a place in what's it called, the Olympics, in like the Olympic whatever that thing is called.
Village or
yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. In Korea, yeah, they actually had a stand there and everything.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so he called me and was like, hey, I'm tired of doing this, because at that time he had only 30% stake in that company. So he was just like, I'm managing, and these are silent partners that are taking 67% of,
yeah,
like this just makes no sense. So I want to start something else. And he was like, I'm tired of doing the breakfast food. So pho and banh mi are known as breakfast foods in Vietnam. So yeah, he was like, no, I want to do dinner, lunch and dinner. Like not just lunch and dinner. Like I want to do a full like 5 to 7 course, $150 a head, kind of experience. So yeah, he said that to me and was like, do you want to do it for me? Like, do you want to, like be the feet on the ground for me for this? And I was like, sure, why not? Like yeah, basically that job for the year that I was doing it, I was living like Anthony Bourdain. Like I was sent to Vietnam to live there and like literally immerse myself in it. Like I was part of a nonprofit that teaches the hospitality industry to underprivileged kids. So yeah, I kind of learned from there, like, oh, this is actually what you're supposed to do and things like that. And then on the side, I had met this weird white guy that just got burnt out in New York, and he had worked at several Michelin restaurants up in New York, and then just got a divorce, and he had moved over to Vietnam to like get a fresh start. Fell in love with Vietnamese food, and then basically started this journey where he started from the very top, which is like Sapa is at the very northern tip of Vietnam, and then he went all the way down to the southern tip of Vietnam. So it's like going from Chicago all the way to Miami, right, by bike. And every 6 miles, I'm doing like the conversions. Yeah. Every 6 miles, he would literally stop at a local hotel and be like, teach me something regional within like this, 10 kilometer, 6 mile radius, and I'll fix your Western menu. So like he did that and learned all these regional like foods and everything. And yeah, I met him at a bar and we just fell in love with each other. And yeah, I got to work with him for like 6 months too, during that time to open kitchens. And yeah, so it's one of those, like, I liken that time to, like, if you're in the ring with like Mike Tyson during like his practices, like eventually you're gonna learn, like,
pick up something.
Yeah, you're gonna pick something up. Yeah. So that's essentially what happened. I mean, he went on to open up the first Asia Top 50 in Saigon. Yeah. So yeah, like that's kind of how I learned all the stuff that I'm doing right now too. So yeah.
That's great. So what would you say, and you kind of touched upon it when we were talking about your food, what sets your food, I guess, different from other people around the area or even in the DC metro area?
Oh, I think my standards are completely different. I don't think, I mean, anybody that's serious about food is never going to say that DC is a destination spot for food. Like you don't come here to eat. like that's not your main priority of coming here, right? You know, like again, like I worked with a guy that opened an Asia Top 50. A lot of my friends have, you know, like super successful restaurants throughout Asia, and you know, their goals were always like, I want to be the best at what I'm doing, kind of thing. So you know, like I had that mindset as well when I'm doing this. It's like, hey, I'm not gunning to be, you know, like just mediocre. Like it's like, hey, no, like this restaurant is going to be the top Asian restaurant in America. Hopefully that's what happens. Hopefully I take over Panda Express, right?
Yeah.
I want this to be wherever there's a Chipotle, wherever there's a Cava, this has to be the third option. Essentially, is what I want it to be. So, yeah, in 5 years, I hope I have 15 in this area, and then another 5 after that. Hopefully, I'm in New York, opening about 30 in New York.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like people who actually just speak what their goal is rather than.
Oh yeah, no, I make it very clear. Like,
most people,
yeah,
they won't say anything just so people don't poo poo, or that way they don't put themselves out there. So, but I feel like when you say something that you're gonna do, you kind of put it on yourself, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, like that's kind of the draw of being just very straightforward. It's just like, oh crap, now I have like this, like it's out there, like I need this done, and no, like I think these are very realistic goals. I've created something that's very franchisable, for one thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm never gonna franchise it. It's like I said, like I
what happens.
Yeah, I know what happens once you start franchising, and I don't want to franchise. Like I still after working at Panda for a bit, like when I came back, like it was just like seeing a monster, like like working with a monster and like just seeing how they work. It was just like, holy crap, this is amazing.
It's like a mindless type machine, and just soaking out the money for other people who are not really involved in the process.
Yeah, no, but then like the way that Panda did it, like the thing that solidified like me never franchising was the fact that like when COVID hit, there was like a week period where like nobody knew what to do, right? And they shut down everything in that week time, right? And Panda shut down all 2,000 stores that they had, and within 3 days opened up with PPE, everything like fixed, and it was just like one of those like, who else has this kind of like ability to respond like that quickly?
Money and power and just time.
Yeah. Like it was just like one of those like, holy crap, like nobody else could keep up with us. So it was just like, wow, that level of like just the willpower of like Andrew Churn to be like, hey, like I want it this way, and I don't care what it takes. Like all of my stores will be open within the next 3 days with all of this, and you guys need to figure it out. So it was just like, that's exactly what I want for my for my business. It's just like, yeah, that's the right way to do it. That, and then it's also one of those like, without franchising, like I actually have a higher percentage for myself, so to speak. But then that also means that I can do more, like that percentage I can give to like my workers, for example. Like my workers right now, they're looking at their paycheck like confused because like I told them like, I'm giving you 12 plus the tip, right? And this is their first job for like a lot of them, so they just were like, oh, so 12 flat kind of thing, right? But like with the tips, they're like getting like 3 or 4 on top of that, so they're getting paid like 15, 16.
Yeah.
As a starting job.
Well, the other thing is, once they see it, they see the taxes coming out too.
Yeah. So
everybody is hit by that. I just want to say that because it's so funny when you look at your first paycheck and you're like, it takes like 40% out of my what can I do with this? Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. That's an amazing to make as like your first job. And then for them it's like one of those like, you said that like I would get stuff taken, like there would be a chunk taken out because of taxes, and like because of the tip, it looks as though they're not getting anything taken out, right? Yeah. So they're just like, so you're just getting full paychecks. Yeah. Even though nobody, do they actually even get paychecks? The first one I had to. Okay. Yeah. Just because she didn't put in her direct deposit correctly. That's also how it works. But like it's I had an employee do a paycheck, and I was just like, this is wild. Like, why are you just direct deposit? You can see it there. I'll show you the online portal.
Yeah.
It's just so funny logistics, like what we used to do, because I worked at Safeway, and back then you actually had to, well, you didn't have to, but I was like 15 or 16. And I don't know. You don't care back then, and you're still in high school. So what have you, like you said, you basically managed other restaurants before.
Yeah.
Any lessons you learned with your own?
Oh yeah.
That are new, I guess.
I mean, like, take my experience with Panda, for example. I think Panda really solidified the idea that there is a learning curve to cooking. So, like for a new hire, if they're working in the back for Panda, it takes a minimum of 3 months for them to actually become semi-decent and semi-competent. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you look at the recipes that I have, like, it's one of those, like, it should have literally taken you like 2 to 3 weeks for you to become competent within, like,
this
inside
the kitchen.
Time. Yeah. So it is one of those things where it's like, again, it comes with, like, proper menu design and everything. Like, a lot of people don't factor that in, that, like, there is going to be turnover in your restaurant, and that, like, you have to kind of mitigate that turnover somehow.
Yeah.
So, like, my thing was, like, I'm trying to mitigate turnover by, one, paying higher. There should be less turnover that way. But then it's also one of those...
you got to make sure that within a certain time span, if they're not picking up stuff, that you...
Yeah.
Maybe find another person that would...
Well, there is that, but then it's also one of those... like, a lot of the people that I'm going to be hiring realistically are going to be high schoolers, college kids, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be their first job. I understand my role in society is to pick up these people and really, like, give them, like, a first job experience where, like, it's like, hey, these are things that you need in life. These are, like, skills that you're going to take with you.
Yeah.
So, again, like, that's one of those things that I really want to focus on. Like, I don't want to be remembered for, like, good food. I want to be remembered because I'm a good employer more than anything, right? Like, that was the focus of, like, my boss in Korea with his franchise. He was like, I don't want to be remembered for having, like, this food or that food or anything. It's like, no, I want to be remembered because, like, we actually changed the franchising model in Korea. Mm-hmm. Like, we actually made it so that, like, employees make a percentage cut. Like, percentage cuts never exist in Korea. So for him to, like, start saying, like, hey, I'm only going to take 50% and the rest of the 50% is cut up, like, with the employees, like, that's something that's foreign in Korea. That just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, like, that's what he wants to be remembered for. And I mean, I'm sure, like, he's doing well. I haven't checked up on him since I came back, but yeah, that's the same thing. That's the same mentality that I have with this. It's like, I don't want to do what's being done right now because status quo isn't really working.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, why follow status quo when it doesn't work? Like, let's try something different. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, then yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. So.
Well, I guess for you being so long, like, seeing something work over there, that you kind of knew what you wanted to do with your spot and what you wanted people to see you as. I guess that's the biggest thing to you, rather than the restaurant as a whole or the food. It's more of your image. Image as an employer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those things where, like, that was something my mentor really, like, it drilled into my head. It was just that, like, hey, a company is, like, just an extension of you as a, like, as the CEO. Like, this company that I have, like, he was talking about himself. It's like, this is an extension of me, right? Like, ultimately, whatever they do, like, it's, like, on me kind of thing. And it reflects me. So, like, it's the same with this. Like, this restaurant, yes, like, this is one of many restaurants I wish to have. Like, but ultimately, like, it has to feel like it's me. Like, my handprints have to be like all over it kind of thing. And yeah, it's one of those like I said, like I don't want to be remembered as, you know, like McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather be a Chick-fil-A than a McDonald's, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean by that is that like McDonald's very recently they opened up the first store without people in it.
Yeah.
Right? Fully automated. And like for me that's such an affront to like what food is, right? Like food, like there's so much that is entwined with food. You know, like culture is like literally like food defines culture is what I've learned like throughout my time in Asia. It's like, yeah, this like for example like buntit nung, like the vermicelli bowls, like that comes like from like necessity. Like those noodles, that's literally the starch like that's been like drained from rice and they're just using that. Like after they cook the rice, like that starch,
that's the runoff.
Yeah, it's the runoff,
and they use everything.
They use everything. They make like noodles out of that starch. You know, like it's like one of those like who would have thought like they can make more food out of this kind of thing, but they somehow did it, right? So it's literally one of those things where it's like, there's when you look at the history of food, it really defines, you know, like where the people are, you know, and like that's something that I've always thought about with America. It's like American food culture is always like fast food culture, but do I, you know, like as an American, like do I really want like the burger to be like the quintessential like American dish kind of thing, or
yeah,
you know, like is there room for other things, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, Cava and Chipotle, I could definitely see Okonomi being something like that. And it's just like,
yeah.
The funny thing is, like, imagine, I mean, you grew up at the same time I did. Chipotle was just like, Chipotle was actually amazing in our,
yeah.
Everyone wanted to go to Chipotle in high school. That was like the spot, like,
yeah.
Oh, we're going to Chipotle. You're going to Chipotle? Can you take me?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Homeroom.
So,
nowadays it's more like, what do they call that? A cornerstone. It's like McDonald's. Like,
yeah.
Even though McDonald's, I think, used to own part of Chipotle as well at one point. But
yeah, that's a wild story too. Like if you read up on it, it's just like one of those like Chipotle did. It's amazing. Like they leveraged like McDonald's like purchase so well to like expand and like the logistics that McDonald's has. Like that's again, that's something that I learned from Panda as well. It's just like, holy crap, this is like the restaurant industry is literally just a logistics game. If you know how to do logistics, you'll be great at like doing restaurants.
A lot of people don't know that McDonald's doesn't make like much money, and sometimes they take a hit on sandwiches, like fries and drinks. That's where you're making your money.
Yeah.
But the big thing is real estate.
Yeah.
They're basically just making money off the franchise tag and the real estate rent.
Yeah.
Some people, I mean, I think there was a movie that just came out or something like that explaining that.
Yeah.
And it's also a bunch of other things, but a lot of people don't know that they don't really make money off the food that much.
It's the land that the restaurant is on. Yeah. Same with Panda. Like if you like dive into like Panda's finances, you'll see that like there's like shell companies and everything. Like Andrew has shell companies that literally buys the land that all these pandas like, you know, like exist on. And yeah, if you look at their P&L, like it's one of those like, oh, so Andrew takes 49%, but then that 49% doesn't also like consider the 8% rent that he takes, you know, like, and things like that. So it's like, again, it's just one of those like, holy crap, you know, like.
Oh, they serve food too.
Yeah.
Like,
it's pretty amazing, like the network that Andrew made from nothing. Yeah, I mean, I find that part to be pretty amazing too. Like right now, I'm in that phase where, you know, like what is it, the 21st? Yeah, so pretty soon, I think it's a like, couple days from now, like it'll be like when I actually started negotiating, like a year since I started negotiating for like purchasing the existing restaurant that was, you know, where my restaurant is now. Mm-hmm. But it's wild to think that like this was just something in my head like a year ago.
Yeah.
And like now it's like.
But you started talking about it, right? Just like you said, like
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna have all those franchises. Once you say it,
it has to happen kind of thing. And
yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, at that point I had, I had gone like, it was year 3 of me coming back from Asia. And then, I had looked at over 200 locations. Like I have a Google Maps like thing of 200 locations.
Just peppered like a serial killer, right?
Yeah, basically. And then like, I have like special like flags instead of just the normal red flags that, you know, like you put up for all these locations. I had like special flags for like, these are the ones that I went into contract with. And like I have like 24 like that I went into contract with. But then like at the last minute they like bailed out because another person came in or something. Like that.
Offer them.
Yeah. And I mean like it's one of those like like I'm in the eyes of like financial bankers and everything, like I am a guy that should not have a establishment of their own in this area. Like it's really weird to like think that like there is some gatekeeping going on, like with like real estate. It's not just prices, but at least in the Northern Virginia like market, like price plays a huge thing. Like mom and pop shops cannot like survive in this environment. And then the other thing too is that like mom and pop shops don't exist simply because like the real estate agent is literally saying, nah, there's no way that you'll like survive here, which again is based off of the rent being so ridiculous.
I don't know where I heard the study, but it was saying that like no, I think it was just talking about businesses in general. It was like within like the 3 or 4 months they shut down by then, and then it was like 2 years after it was, I don't remember the percentage on that, but that's overall businesses and stuff like that.
City of Fairfax is super rough because there's no parking, and like
I agree, but you picked a good spot because you have bad and good. Because you got the 4 spaces in front, but then you've got that whole parking lot
right behind.
Yeah.
So like it's one of those like once you're fine. But like for the new people, they're always just like your parking sucks, and it's like
you can park on the back. Like if you know the area, it's super easy to get in and super easy to park wherever you want.
So I love the fact that because of that. Like I'm a hole in the wall kind of, like I am actually a hole in the wall in the middle of like the most visible space.
But you also you're right near a 7-Eleven. Did that project into your property? Because I was like, So I'll make the critique. I've never seen a 7-Eleven fail. It will never fail as long as they have Slurpees, taquitos, and every candy under the sun. Yeah,
no, there is no way that'll fail. But it is one of those things where like. One of my friends that I met at Panda, like he actually opened all of the Marumens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was one of the people that opened it.
So are you good friends with him over there?
With the guy that opened it, and then I mean he moved on and did his own stuff, but so like he was telling me like, hey, your location is fine. Like Marumen made back everything within the first 6 months.
You know why, right? Because Marumen is in Pizza Hut's soul right now. That's an old Pizza Hut that they're in, right? And there's actually a website dedicated to old Pizza Huts.
Oh, really?
Converted into different things. It's amazing. You should check it out. But no one nowadays would know besides people who actually grew up in the Pizza Hut days.
I guess that's true, but anytime I walk into a building that used to be a Pizza Hut, it was a Pizza Hut. Like the shape of the windows, the brick, everything is just like, this screams Pizza Hut.
It's got all those red plastic glasses on the floor, the salad bar. So I guess what would you say to someone who was in your shoes when you started? What would you tell them for advice?
Holy crap. If they were in the same shoes as me, like they'd have to be super ballsy to like even consider doing it. Like I opened this, so the restaurant, I purchased the Chinese restaurant, which was failing miserably. Like they were failing so badly that they didn't even give me their numbers. They didn't give me finances. And like I was like, I can already guess, and it's not good. Like, here's a number that I'm going to give you. And like I purchased it for a little bit higher simply because there was another competitor, and I was like, this is my only shot. Like if I don't get this, then I'm not doing this restaurant thing. So like I bought it for $60K, and then that was with a $200K budget for like the entire
what does the $60K actually like come with?
It came with me taking over the lease, whatever equipment was in there already, which by the way, he took like half of the equipment. And it was it was like one of those
good
like
stuff.
I mean, like the good stuff for him was like really crappy stuff that I just didn't need. Like literally all I needed was a hood. So it was just like one of those, you can take everything.
You'd be surprised how expensive a hood is, and then
$70K
being set up as well.
And then
that's great.
So
and it's also zoned correctly too, right? People don't know the logistics of those details. Like,
so the zoning, like all of that, like I was just like, so like the way that I thought about it was a hood will normally cost me about, at that time, because it was COVID too, it was going to be like $120K to like install a brand new hood. So it was just like, oh, so I get a hood for like half off then. And like it's already zoned, and like I don't have to do any of the paperwork that usually takes like 6 months to do anyway. So this is a come up then. Right. And so that's the way that I saw it. And then, you know, like in comes like actual purchase, and then it's like, okay, so the things that I have to do to renovate it to actually make it work. Like that was the like, holy crap, I did not think that it would cost me like so much more,
because it just keeps on adding and adding.
It just adds up. Like for example, the steam table in my budget, it was $3 to $5K.
And what's the steam table for?
The steam table is where all the food is displayed. And like they already had it. Like mind you, they already had the steam table.
I guess it wasn't working though.
It was reversed. So the hot stuff was where the cold stuff is now, and the cold stuff is there. And it was just like, my parents didn't understand why I needed that switched. Why like the Chinese guy was absolutely dumb for doing it that way. And like it was like,
maybe that's why they went out of business. Their hot food was cold and their cold food was hot.
I mean, like logistically, think of it this way, right? Like if you're grilling the hot food and you have to walk 10 steps over to like put the hot food into the holding,
I mean,
it doesn't make sense.
Small details adds up. If you're doing a lot of quick work.
And if you're doing that, you know, like 15 times in a day, it's gonna add up. So
I mean, margins are like
exactly
in restaurants.
Exactly. So that was just one of those like small details that like they didn't get right. Another thing they didn't get right, for example, like you'll notice this now that I say it, and like it's funny because all of the restaurateurs that have come in and like tried the food and everything, they love it, but then like the second thing they say is like, how are you doing this? Because with the equipment you have, you shouldn't be. Like, and it was just like, I'm literally willing this to happen. But like the thing they notice is your dish sink is the tiniest dish sink I've ever seen, right? And normally for a dish sink, you can put a full hotel pan in there. You can't do that with mine. So like they're like, how are you doing this?
Is that like one of your big purchases coming up next?
That is going to be after. So it's a minor purchase technically, because all of the other ones are like 15,000 plus that I have to get, right?
But that's like a big thing, like restaurant resale stuff. That's like huge, right?
It's huge. So like that's kind of like what I'm hoping for, that I can find some of these things like in auctions.
That would make sense. Like why, unless it's like something like high yield or like why would you ever buy brand new unless it's working well?
Well,
unless it
for a sink, it's more of it has to fit the space. So like that one's like,
they're not selling them at IKEA.
And it's frustrating trying to find a piece that'll like actually fit. It's like, oh man, I'd rather just spend money on a new one and just completely not worry about it.
That makes sense.
So there is that. But it's kind of hilarious, just like all of the things that like I wish that I can have, or like people don't understand when they come into like they're eating the food and they're like, people are loving it.
They don't understand what has gone into like each ingredient too.
That, or like the idea that, hey, this concept is running at like 40%. Like the things that are crossed out on the board, like those things should be like there. but you know, like they're not because logistically
they're amazing at 40%. Let me just tell you that.
Yeah. So like that's the thing that I'm just like, holy crap, people are like, that's what gives me hope. That it's just like, oh man, people are really liking this even at 40.
Let me just say that we did this on your day off. You work 6 out of the 7 days right now, correct?
Yeah. I mean, like even before this, like I actually was at Costco like picking up stuff, and like my day off is like logistics day, so it's the day that I can run around and actually get stuff because I'm always in the kitchen.
Yeah, because I also saw that you just sent an email. Well, I just started getting emails because we were going back and forth, and I was like, this is great. Like, there's a lot of good stuff on here.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think that's the thing, like, with somebody that wants to do something like this, I don't think they understand the hours that go into it. Like, I can almost guarantee, like, 95% of the people won't want to do it after they hear, like, last week I did 130 hours. Mm-hmm. And, like, I have to be okay with it. You know?
Yeah. But, I mean, when you think about it, it goes back to exactly what you said about, like, your percentage in the company. That's what you're kind of earning back. Yeah. And that's...
Like, at the end of the day, I am building...
But you're having fun, too,
my dream.
Is it?
Yes and no.
You're not at that fun part yet?
It's one of those, like... I can see the, like, light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing. But it's also one of those, like... I mean, I'm still at that stage where it's like... I really don't know if this concept is going to go off or not. Like... It's been 7-8 months now. Like no major like reviewer has actually come out, right? Like literally one Instagrammer has come out like that has over 70K like
I think views. I saw that. Is that the one who did the
Russell? Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Probably.
I think they did the Japanese restaurant across from Chipotle.
Yeah. Genki or Genki
something like that.
Yeah. So like it's like one of those like, yo man, like nobody's talking about me.
But it's word of mouth. Like,
No. That's the thing that kind of gets me because I was just like, hey, no, but I'm 100% doing this the right way. Where it's like literal word of mouth is what's driving everything. So like again, I'm still in that stage of like, I don't have enough word of mouth. I need to figure out how to get more word of mouth going. Yeah. Right now, the workers I have, all of them are from Madison -1. So like I gave them 2,000 coupons to give to like all the kids.
That's awesome.
So like I told them very clearly, like, these are the goals we need to reach in order for you to, one, make money, but two, to keep a job.
Did you put the like any disseminating marks so you know which coupons you gave to which person?
No, there's only one coupon right now.
For all the only reason I would say that is like when you get the coupons back.
Yeah.
And if that person had like got more people out there, I don't know, that they get like a little benefit.
They get a little bonus from it.
Not I wouldn't say bonus, but like I don't know, something from it. Like the best person who got the most coupons there. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought about it, but it's again one of those things where it's like, hey, like I really want to, like, in terms of the company culture, it's like, hey, we're a team. Like it kind of goes against that when you're just like incentivizing like individuals only. So it is one of those like I told them very clearly, like, we're gonna have a goal, like a team goal for this, and they were like, oh, 700 coupons like to return, and like if we do that, they were like, we'll figure something out for the goal. And I was like, that's not how goals work. You need to like list it out so that, you know, like we reach it kind of thing. Yeah. So it's kind of funny working with high schoolers simply because they're so unaware of like how things work. Yeah. But it's also like, I love that part too, where it's like, hey, I get to mold you guys the way that like I would like for you guys to be. Yeah. And then again, I also made it very clear to them, like when they were hired, it's like a lot of these guys or a lot of these kids are going to college in the next 6 months. So it's like, yeah, turnover is again built into this. Like it's already a known fact that they're going to be leaving. But I made it very clear to them. It's like, hey, like by the end of this, my goal is that one, that you'll enjoy your job while you're here, but two, you'll have learned some life skills, some skill sets and tool sets like that you can use elsewhere. One thing, for example, is Serve Safe, right? Which is a certification for handling food safely. Like I'm a proctor for that, so I can give it to them.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So with that, they can go anywhere out to be managers. They can start at a managerial level. So yeah, that's a great, like come up.
That's a big, especially like if they're going to college and they actually want to,
if they want to pursue
make money, then
yeah, exactly. So that was one thing, but then the other thing was, like once they leave, if they, like during breaks and everything, it's like, hey, like this is wide open for you. You can come back and like totally.
That's probably the biggest time for business too. Summer, winter breaks,
exactly.
When the holidays, and then.
So like that's again, it's also looking at it long term, but it's like again being very realistic and open with everybody, and that's part of the company culture that I want to have for.
Well, the other thing you add to it is like just exposure, and like you said, word of mouth. Like if you get like for example, they have to go to high school. Obviously, losing good workers is bad, but I mean, if they love the food, they love the atmosphere, they're gonna talk about it at college. They're gonna tell friends about it. They're gonna tell the neighborhood. There's no reason they wouldn't.
Exactly. So like that's really what I told them too. Is like by the end of the 6 months, hopefully like you like this enough where like you tell your siblings or you tell somebody else, like somebody that replaces you basically. And like like I always thought that was always a good business practice to have as well. Like I mean, or just an individual practice to have. Like if you're going to be leaving a job, you find your replacement. Like that's kind of like one of those like if I like the company, I should be doing that. Like I should.
You want it to be around after you leave for a set amount of time.
Yeah. So like that's again, this is kind of the joy of working with like fresh minds that like are completely moldable. It's like hey, I can mold you the right way, or I can mold you like the incorrect way. Yeah. So let's hope I'm doing it the right way.
Definitely. Yeah. So, no, I see that. That's. Yeah. I feel like the models that just have like a feedback system, not just input, output, but kind of like look back on itself to kind of keep on improving is the best type of method.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I ask everyone is, what's one thing that your parents did that you'd like to pass on to a next generation, and what's something that you would either basically do differently that they did?
Something that I think I talk with my parents on a daily basis. I mean, now I do because I have to. Yeah. Right. I mean, like they are the ones that like I took the loan from. So like, they're always wondering like when they're going to get their money back and whatnot.
How does that make you feel, by the way?
Oh my God.
Is it like when I was living with my parents, which was for a very short time after Virginia Tech?
Yeah.
It wasn't. I obviously everyone loves not paying rent.
Yeah.
But it was emotional rent. You know what I mean? Like it's just like
no.
And I imagine you feel that.
Right? Yeah. There is a bit of that. I mean, like I'm not living with them. They live in
No, I know, but I meant like if I owed my parents
coming back
amounts of money, I would just
So coming back to America, part of it was to actually, like be around them because, like one, they're getting older, and it's one of those like all of my friends were 15 plus years older than me back in Korea and Asia. And one of the things they would always say is like, hey, like your parents are around for a limited amount of time. Like make sure you spend time with them while they're still able-bodied, because down the road they're going to get, like dementia or something, and you're just not going to, like have that experience. So do it while you can. Right. So that was part of the reason why I came back. And then it's really weird now, like, because one, I'm a full-grown adult now. Like I'm not just some college kid that like went off to college and didn't know anything about the world. So like that's something that my parents are kind of coming around to. It's like, oh, like for the first few months, my dad was always frustrated every single day, like helping me out, because he was just like, he had to come to terms that he was the one that was inexperienced in the restaurant industry, and I had, like this wealth of knowledge that he needed to rely on. So, like that dynamic of, like father son, like completely changes in that, scenario. So, no, like, that's such a weird thing to be experiencing right now in my life stage. Right. Like, but it's also been a super huge blessing because, like I said, like you only get one time with them. I'm enjoying I am thoroughly enjoying like all of the troubles that we're getting into and all of that stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, you know, like these are my parents. Like, yeah. But something that they've done, you know, like even this whole thing, like when I think of it, like it doesn't make sense to a certain degree, right? Like just the like blind faith they had in me to do this. Like I mean, I told them, like right now I've only told you maybe like up to 5 years, right? Of like the plan that I have, but like it's one of those like when I was in Asia and they came to visit, I actually gave them a whole like 20-year spiel. You know, like, and it's one of those things that like my mentor really like ingrained in me. He was just like, yeah, 5 years is for, you know, like amateurs. Like everybody should be doing this, but not a lot of people do. 10 years is when, you know, like, oh, you can make a difference in the, you know, like your area. But 20 years is really, you know, like that's really focusing on something bigger than yourself. So, yeah, I told him like, this is what I want to do in 20 years. And like, if I want to come back to America and do something like this, then I'm going to need funding, because there's no way that like I can fund this myself. And like, it was probably like a 10-minute conversation that my parents had with each other, at least in front of me. But like, it was one of those like, yeah, like again, blind faith, like literally was just like, here, blank check, go for it. Yeah, like that's something that I don't understand still. I mean, like, again, I don't have kids of my own yet. Like, I'm sure that'll come when, like, I have kids. Like, it's just like, yeah, but that's, yeah, I still think that's ridiculous. Yeah, no, I mean, I talked with my dad, like, the other day, too. One of the, like, maybe a couple months ago, like, on, like, one of the busier days when it was just, like, going really well, it was like, did you think that we would be, you know, like doing this well, this fast? And he was like, no, I kind of expected me to lose all my own money. And like, it was just like one of those like, why would you bet on me then? He was like, well, you're my son. Like, what else am I supposed to do? Yeah. Right. And it was just like, holy crap. That's really heavy. Yeah. So, no, like if anything, that's kind of the thing that I would like to, you know, like pass on as well. It's just like, hopefully when I have kids down the road, like that's something that I can do for them as well. I'd like to be in a better place to do it, but then like, yeah, just to be able to be in a position to say like, hey, you know, like you have dreams, you have aspirations, you know, like what can I do to get you there? That's something that I'd like to be able to pass on.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything you want to basically add on or change that?
Let's see. Well, just going off of what my dad's said over and over, it's like one of the things that he regrets is that like he just didn't spend time with us growing up. You know, being an immigrant dad, working at a store, you know, like trying to pay for like the family and everything. Like he put himself in that situation kind of, right? Where it's just like, I had to provide for my family. And because of that, like he was like, he's told me that like, oh yeah, I didn't get to spend time with my family. Right.
Yeah.
So that might be something that like I'd like to change, you know, like hopefully if everything goes well with this business, then it's like, I have ample time to do that.
Yeah. Slowly work your way out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Delegating. Yeah.
But you know, like that is something that, you know, like hearing from my dad, like, I mean, I every time he says that, I'm always just like, you know, like as a kid, I don't think I would have cared, you know, like you could have definitely just, you know, been, you know, hung out with us a little bit more or anything. But I don't think, the problem that or the dilemma that he kept on bringing up, it was not a thought that I had in my head when I was growing up.
Oh yeah. It's like an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. So that's definitely something like I hope I could change for myself, or like I don't want to be in that position where like I'm having to like be like I have to feed my family versus, you know, I can't be around my family.
So while you're here, is there anything you want to promote? Anything you have working on coming up?
Oh man. it's really weird because this is the first time that in a while that I've had to like actually talk about like just the big goals versus like my tiny goals, which right now is just like, I need to get this for the kitchen, or I need to get that. Like we had to hit X amount of sales, or, you know, like stuff like that. I mean, I'm going to be focusing more on like these curated bowls. Because again, like one of those things that like I really wish to do with this concept is, you know, like really expose the American public to, you know, just non-American cuisine, so to speak, right? Like it's such a really like it's such a weird thing to like experience this where because I've put everything in English, more or less everything in English.
Yeah.
I've somehow ostracized like the Korean community and the Vietnamese community that are so used to like these dishes.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, I don't know what to get here. Versus like, you know, like English speaking like Americans where it's just like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is, and I'd like to get that kind of thing. So it's just so weird seeing that because, you know, like usually at like Vietnamese restaurants or like Korean restaurants, like they know what they're getting.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird thing. But yeah, these curated bowls are supposed to kind of, one, like I can actually take pictures of them and like show like this is what it is, and but two, it's also to kind of teach the, you know, like general public, hey, this is the bowl that I based it off of. This is kind of a standard in, you know, like X country or so, right? Like for example, the next one that we're coming up, we're bringing out is the lemongrass bowl, which is lemongrass chicken, and that's me catering to like the American public because lemongrass chicken isn't like as common as lemongrass pork in Vietnam, right? But yeah, just that over jasmine rice and like just herbs and peanuts, basically, more or less, right? And it's just like one of those like, yeah, this is what you'll see like a office worker in Vietnam getting, and like yeah, because most people when they come, they get everything in the bowl and everything, but it's also one of those things where it's like you can do that and you get a great experience.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like I love doing that too, but it's also one of those like addition by subtraction kind of things where you subtract some things and it turns into a completely different thing.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because I remember like the first time I went to Cava, I probably did the same exact thing. And then I finally got to figure out what I wanted, but then when you bring older people there, like they have no clue. Like they don't even know what some of the stuff in there is. And the other thing is they just started like maybe last year or something like that. They started doing curated bowls where they were like, oh, this is the Greek bowl, this is what's in it. Yeah. And like they had different stuff, and I was like, that is so much easier for my parents. Like I don't have to make
tell
3
them.
bowls. Yeah. Like, can I get a Greek, and then I'm gonna curate mine, but these two.
Yeah.
Go with
so that. Like that was always my qualm with Cava. Like when I went, it's like one, the menus are so tiny, like you have to squint to read it. But then like my dad, who yes, he speaks English and can read English, but like he's still uncomfortable with it. Where it's just like
he's not confident. Just like any
Yeah. So it's one of those like we went to Cava and he was just like, I don't know what I want. I can't read that. That's too tiny. Like I have like, you know, like I'm aging. I can't see stuff.
Yeah.
So like, he's just like, I want everything. And like he had his bowl and like, it was just like, oh, this is horrible. Like these are horrible combinations.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like, that's the thing with Cava. It's like, you can actually make a really horrible bowl.
Lemony.
You have to stick to lanes, and like if you don't know your lanes, kind of thing, it's like, oh man, this is gonna be a like horror show for whoever's eating it. And like that was what happened with my dad. Like he was just like, yeah, my bowl sucks, and like I was just like, here, just have mine. And like I switched bowls with him, and like he was just like, yours is so much better. And I'm like, yeah. So like, thankfully, like while I was like making everything, like that was always something in my mind where I was just like, everything has to. Like if you throw everything in, it has to taste good.
Yeah.
Like it has to be fine as is kind of thing. But again, addition by subtraction. Like when you take out this or that and make like something super Korean, it turns into like this really amazing Korean dish versus, you know, like the Vietnamese stuff, which is super Viet. Like I don't really say this often, but like again, like the guy that I worked with, top 50 in all of Asia, right, for Vietnamese food. So it's like one of those like, I'm confident with my Vietnamese food and like my like Vietnamese cooking to be like, hey, I guarantee that like this is probably like truer to like modern day Vietnam than anywhere else in this entire like East Coast.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's one of those like I mean, like a great example of that is like the coffee, for example. Like, why does mine taste so different compared to other places? Like, yes, it's cold brewed, but it's like, yeah, no, I'm actually using the right beans. Everybody else is using Café du Monde, which is American, and it's like, you know, like the story behind that is that basically all of the Vietnamese immigrants that they came in the 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like basically after the fall of Saigon, like all of these southern Vietnamese came and immigrated over here. But after that, basically East Germany had a coffee shortage, and they went to Vietnam and were like, hey, we need some coffee. Can you become our supplier? So like Vietnam built this huge coffee industry that they just didn't have
before.
Yeah, and now they're the number 2 like largest exporter of coffee in the world, right? But like with that also comes like coffee culture that just didn't exist, right? So yeah, like that's something that the immigrants, you know, from Vietnam from the 70s just they didn't have that in their lives. So yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
good.
So like that's, oh man, the banh mi's, like the bread option there, like people don't understand, like that's actually supposed to be the number 1 seller, and like it sucks that like I'm opening with like the number 2, and then like, the number 1 is just like almost non-existent.
Because I know you're pushing the sandwiches too, like
yeah. So
I gotta try that next time then.
Yeah, whenever it's available, give it a try. Like I've had multiple people that have had it be like, this is better than the bowl. I don't know why you're doing the bowl. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like they get angry. Like my employees get angry with that too. They're just like, why aren't you making the sandwiches? Like I want the sandwiches. Like it's so frustrating when like you have staff that like have had it and they're just like, why aren't you doing what?
Maybe they'll start pushing it.
Yeah, no, they 100% are. Like they're just like, can like, and like again, I keep telling them like, 1, we need more sales so that I can have 2 of you.
Yeah.
Like on the weekends.
Yeah. So you don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. It's just hard to.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell, especially high schoolers, something like something so expansive to them when they're just brand new.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like again, like I love dealing with how new they are to everything, but it's also one of those like frustrating things where it's like, hey, you need to, you know, like come back down to like reality kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for coming and talking.
It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll see me. I mean, I've come every week since we found out. Yeah. So you'll see me again. And
sounds good.
But that's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you like this week's episode of People More Interesting Than Me, please follow me on Apple Podcasts so you won't miss out on more episodes like these.